All right. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the final pre-arrival webinar with Claire and
And Henny. It's our last but not least webinar, and we
that's
have
right.
this mix of feelings. We
Oh my
just
gosh.
sad and exciting because we're gonna see you at campuses, but it would be the last pre-arrival webinar, and then we're gonna see each other at campus very soon, guys.
It's true. So, for those of you who have been with us for 8 pre-arrival webinars, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
tuning in all 8 times. For those of you who are maybe just tuning into this final webinar, my name is Claire Kelly. I'm the International Immigration Advisor at NBCC. And
And my name is Henny Kamal. I'm International Affairs Coordinator at NBCC. I'm working out of Fredericton Corporate Office, and
right,
Claire is working.
I'm in Moncton.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're gonna launch right into our final pre-arrival webinar on cultural awareness and cultural integration and all things cultural related. Culture is a big topic, as you're going to see. So we've got a few slides here to cover, and a lot of personal experiences, but also some documented slides of what is culture, what are some processes of culture shock. So we're going to cover that in the first 30 minutes. And then in the final half, the final 30 minutes, we are going to open it up to Q&A, to any questions that you would like to ask us. Doesn't have to be about culture, it could be about anything you'd like. So as always, write your questions
Yep.
in the little question box, and we'll get to them at the end. All right, should we start, Annie? Oops. All right. So, just as I said, what we're planning on covering today, we're going to first just briefly introduce the international student body at NBCC, like how many international students there are here and where they're coming from. Second, to appreciate that as international students, you may face unique challenges in adapting to life at college compared to maybe the everyday Canadian student here who's going here, as well as life in Canada in general. So this includes cultural shock, social adjustment, and academic adjustment or pressure. So we're going to cover each of those, as we mentioned. And then to also learn about the programs and services provided by the Student Success Center here at NBCC, hopefully to help you with all of the stages of your journey at NBCC. And then, as mentioned, we'll have some open Q&A. So,
Thank you, Claire.
yeah, so Henny.
Yep. Just want to give you an idea about our international student body that at NBCC we have students from 72 countries around the world, and we have students from almost every country. Our top countries, I would say, representation of our top countries would be India, Vietnam, Brazil, Philippines, and China. And for 2018-2019, we have around 500 international students attending NBCC, and it's almost 16% of NBCC's student body. So this year we're expecting have even more students. So our numbers are growing, and we really appreciate that you come in and choose NBCC to study. And so as you can understand, you're gonna have very multicultural experience studying at NBCC. On top of this, you're gonna go to new countries, so it will bring some challenges. But I believe there is a lot of excitement as well because I'm international too. Who I moved to Canada 3 years ago from Ukraine, and it's very interesting, exciting time.
Okay, so do you want me to go to the next one?
Yep.
Okay, great. There we go.
And the challenges that you might face it here or might not. It depends. So first of all, it would be cultural adjustment, because coming from new country, and you just a lot of students and someone who moved to Canada, they used to some certain things and certain tradition, but it could be different from your home country, and there is no don't feel discouraged. Just give yourself a little bit of time, and you're gonna have this adjustment period. And if you remember from our past webinar, we have NBCC instructor and NBCC international students who's talking about this. Just give yourself a break. Don't rush, or don't jump into the conclusion. You just need sometimes for the cultural adjustment and social adjustment and academic adjustment as well, because the country where we come from, the educational system could be different from what you study in your own country and the way it works. And we recognize this at NBCC, and we work hard in order to prepare to welcome students from all around the world, from different cultural backgrounds, religion backgrounds. So we always be there for you, and to provide all necessary support. And yeah, that's just briefly what stages you might face.
Hmm.
You can
So,
jump.
yeah, so, and I know,
Iceberg.
sorry, yeah, the cultural iceberg. So, and I know this is a little hard to see on my screen. Is that right, Annie? It's a bit difficult to see. So I'll
It,
first
it
I'll
is,
read out.
but we're gonna send this presentation
Yeah,
after. So
yeah, we're gonna share them, but just to go over so what the cultural iceberg is. So I don't know if anyone watching there watched the movie Titanic. I know it's a little old, but if you know anything about icebergs, it's actually that it's about like 80% is actually underwater, right? So you might see an iceberg, but there's a lot more underwater. And that was the problem with the Titanic, was that they they didn't know that there was so much underneath. And then anyway, sorry, tragedy. But sorry, not to be laughing at that tragedy. I'm just saying that cultural icebergs. So culture is like an iceberg, is that there is so much more under the surface that you don't see. What we do see are things like food, flags, festivals, fashion, holidays, music, performances, dances, games, arts, crafts, literature, language. All of those are yeah, are essential parts of culture. It's what we think of first when we think of culture, and it's great. Like these are things that we like to celebrate about different cultures, because these are things that are different from Canada, the Ukraine, or Japan, and or Australia or Europe. Um, so it's important to appreciate all of those cultural differences. Those are the things we see and we hear, but there's a lot more to culture than just that, right, Annie?
yes,
There's a
definitely.
lot under the surface. So some things here, just because it is small to read. So some major groups are like communication styles and rules, right? Those aren't something that are necessarily explained to you as soon as you enter Canada. Um, so facial expressions, gestures, eye contact, personal space, touching, body language, the tone of your voice when you speak, um, handling and displaying emotion, whether you're allowed to, cry or not, or get angry or not, conversational patterns, and in different social situations or with different um, levels of, for example, government or levels of society. So these are all things that there's no written rules anywhere, unfortunately. I mean, people have written some like books about this, but as I said, when you cross the border into Canada, there's not going to be a sign explaining all of these slight differences from maybe the country that you're coming from. Um, so I'm going to cover the other ones, and then we'll talk a bit more about that. But notions of courtesy and manners, like what is polite in Canada versus your country. Friendship is different. Leadership looks different. Cleanliness, modesty, beauty, like these are all the ideas that differ country to country, or continent to continent, and concepts of yourself, concept of time. I'm going to cover this one. Past and future, fairness and justice, roles related to age, gender, sex, like class, family, as I said, government, and attitudes toward elders or young people or dependents or spouses or authority, education, and approaches to religion, dating, marriage, raising children, problem solving, decision making. So this these are all the things that lie under the surface of culture, that lie within each different country, that aren't as easy to explain in, we're definitely not going to cover it in this short session, that's for sure. But the one thing we wanted to share with you is that if this is your first time traveling to a new country, it's really important that you understand that all these things might be different here. And um, and so, as Hanny was talking about, so your social, cultural, and academic adjustments are going to be are going to be adjustments because of all of these things that are different. So, and I see that everyone can see my notes here on the slide, right? Is
Yep.
that true, Hanny? So,
Yeah, I can
for
see
example,
definitely.
so let's bring up, you brought up an example this
Yeah.
week about shaking hands. So what was your
So,
experience? Because that's
so
something that is not
yeah,
written
I
down.
just gonna give you example what was Claire talking about. For example, like in many countries, for like I can refer to Ukraine, we shake hands every time we see someone, but in Canada you just shake hands only once, and you meet person for the first time, and that's just like that's the differences between country. But at the same time, I have my colleague from Pakistan, and they shake hands every time the meet, and we just decide to shake hands between us, but we understand the differences, and we don't shake hands with other Canadian colleagues. So
Yeah,
just a little bit of example, and the same like leadership or problem solving could be very different from the country where you coming from. And it's very important to understand the way people communicate in Canada. So because sometimes you might think that say stuff that you saying would be understandable for you, but they might not be understandable for other people, and it's not because they don't listen, it's because of the cultural differences. And once again, you will study with students from all around the world, so it would be not only cultural adjustment in terms of Canada, but towards your peers. But it's also exciting time. It's you're gonna have a lot of experience. You're gonna learn a lot of good stuff, new stuff. So it will enrich your life, and that's how I feel. And yeah, eventually you're gonna benefit from this multicultural and diversity.
yeah, um, yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, that's a very good point. That Canada, unlike maybe still a lot of countries, Canada is a multicultural country, right? So yeah, there's going to be Canadian culture, but there's also, as Henny said, there are other cultures that, especially at NBCC with so many international students, um, you know, everyone in your classroom might be figuring out, okay, what are your the cultural norms? And so my example on, Henny's right that in Canada, we'll probably shake hands the first time you meet someone, but then after that, not really. Um, but if actually, as so, it's funny. You shake hands at the beginning, and then there's nothing really in between. But then the closer you get as friends, you might greet each other with a hug. Like, I'm a big hugger. I love hugging people, and that was really difficult for me when I moved to Japan, because in Japan they don't shake hands, they don't really hug a lot unless you become friends. They bow, and yeah, that was really difficult for me to adjust to
Did you still
because
hug people in Japan?
eventually I did. Like, I bring in a little Canadian culture to Japan. That's
I've
also
never
okay,
heard
right? Is that?
I said it never hurts.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But but I had to adapt to the culture of bowing. So I got to know the difference of there are actually different levels of bowing to show different levels of respect. So that's something I adapted to. But yeah, it was difficult. It was a challenge for sure. Also, as I mentioned, concept of time. Everyone around the world, I think, has different concepts of time. In Canada, we're like a kind of like a right on time, or 5 minutes late is still okay. 5 to 10 minutes late is acceptable. I'm not encouraging it. I hope they're don't tell your instructors I said that. You should be right. Sorry.
This is going to be on YouTube, Claire.
I know, but for events or for anything, it might not start immediately on time, but you should always be there 5 to 10 minutes early. Okay, so I am going to say that, especially for your classes, be there 5 to 10 minutes early. But class will start right on time or up to 5 minutes after the time it's supposed to start. And but in Japan, things start right on the dot, like right on the dot. And same with, trains or performances. And so you have to be there at least 10 minutes early. And because things will start right on the dot. And if you're late, it's a very bad thing. So that was for timing. That was an adjustment for me. So yeah. But okay. Hanny, did you have any other for this iceberg?
I
I mean,
think I
there's so
think
much.
it's, yeah, there is a lot of stuff, but the only way to really, understand what we're talking about, understand what we are talking about, you just need to come and explore
Yeah.
yourself. Just be aware that these topics and this, stuff can raise, and just make sure you don't, make conclusion or decision based on what is, acceptable in your country. And yeah, just ask question and try to understand different points of view, even if you, because it's sometimes it's very hard even for me. I've been living in some environment for all my life, and when I came here, um, uh, I have to think the way, other people think, from different background and cultural background. But I learn much more. I don't feel like I have a lot of challenges, and I learn much more, and it's enrich my life and experience. So just stay open-minded and learn. And if you have any questions, we're always here, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally, totally agree.
Plus,
Being
you're gonna
open.
you're gonna have students from second year, so they can explain from your home country, so they can explain you, some of the things that they've been through.
Yeah, so adjusting to culture shock is what we're going to talk about next, and the resources for sure. Second year
Yep.
international students is a huge resource. But yeah, again, like being open and aware, I think are the two probably number one things about just being aware that these are all things that that are going to be different again. And so being open to it is really important. But again, the next slide, we're going to talk about how you might feel during this process of experiencing a different culture. So, um, sorry. The last thing I was though that the great thing about this, as you mentioned, Henny, is that you might learn something about deep culture that didn't exist in your country and that you
Yep.
actually kind of like, right? That was something we
Yes,
had discussed.
definitely.
So, being on time, while it was kind of annoying, it was also, it's like, okay, it's kind of nice to know that the train's always going to be on time, right? So you can start to depend on it. Or like being more polite or being more respectful to others, or sorry, to elders or educators. These are all things that you'll maybe learn something about Canada that you didn't exist in your country, and you're like, oh, it's kind of cool that it's part of that culture. Yeah, I think
Yep.
okay. So let's talk about what you're going to feel when you're going through this. And again, I'm sorry that this is so small, but you will have a copy of this PowerPoint. So I'm just gonna read out the stages of culture shock, because I'm sure if you're, preparing to come to a new country, you've probably heard the word culture shock. Yeah, Henny, did you hear the word culture shock
Yeah,
before you came to Canada?
many times I hear this expression many times, but I never understand like in full until you come to new country. You think like, yeah, cultural shock should be something, minor things that, just cultural shock. They might, drink coffee with or without milk and stuff like that, but it's just like Claire mentioned, it's much more than that.
Coffee is also a cultural adaptation. I think here you'll
Yep.
notice that Canadians always have a coffee with them, which is maybe different to your country. So, yeah, I hope, yeah, welcome to Canada and Tim Hortons. Anyway,
Yep.
so let's talk about these different phases because, as you said, you'd heard the word culture shock, but you didn't really know maybe what it was. Is that true?
Yes,
Okay,
I didn't like have the full understanding of the
right.
term cultural shock.
Okay, so phase number one, and again, I want to say from the beginning, these are like the typical stages, but you could also experience it in a different order, or you might go back and forth between a couple of them. These are just some general phases to be aware might happen, to know that, you know, everyone does go through some sort of this, so it is normal. So, number one is generally the honeymoon phase. Okay, so especially if you've never been to Canada, you might be fascinated. So you might be excited with this new environment. Yeah, the differences have you really curious, okay, about Canada. And yeah, like a honeymoon, you're just like, oh, you're just so excited. You're really happy to be in Canada. So that phase can last. It could last uh, a week. It could last a month. It could last 6 months. It could last a year. I hear that
Yeah,
Hanny,
in my
yours
in
has been
my
going on
case,
for a
I'm
long,
still I'm still in a phase one. I'm still in honeymoon phase.
which is great. That's
Yep.
amazing. How
Yeah.
long have you been here?
3 years, almost three
Yeah,
years.
3 years. That's pretty great. A 3-year honeymoon phase. That's awesome. But I hope that your crash was not longer as well because
Well,
so so the next phase is and I am surprised if you haven't felt any of this, Hanny, but maybe you felt
maybe it's
little
just my
pieces of it.
personality. I don't know.
Yeah,
I,
maybe
I
you're
cannot
just
talk on behalf of all the students and
yeah,
newcomers, but yeah, just
yeah,
my experience. And from what I heard from people who move in here, they really enjoy and appreciate like Canadian lifestyle, and there is a lot
cool.
of good and great stuff, and that's what make Canada great country and unique country in many regards. Yep.
Well, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. As a Canadian, thank you. So the second phase,
You're
though,
welcome.
that that you may or may not feel again at certain points and at certain degrees. Like as I said, maybe Hanny, you have felt it like a little bit at times to time. You just haven't had a big um like phase. Who knows? So
Yep.
I'm gonna read this out. So the second phase is sometimes characterized as hostility or depression phase. So you're like angry or you're really sad. So this is marked by dissatisfaction, frustration, a sense of, I hate this place, I want to go home. Differences begin to intrude and are rejected. A loss of self esteem and status may occur and may lead to a need to self assert in aggressive ways. So, confusion and anger can be presented as a result of misreading cultural cues. So, this is, and I did go through this. So, like, so I could clearly say that I was very frustrated. I did go through a significant phase of this. There were, again, not every day, obviously. There were still like really good days, but I definitely felt a phase where I was frustrated with the culture. And again, so you'll learn by the end of this. I do love Japan, but again, I like my uh, foreign country that I got to experience was Japan. So I am using that as an example. These are just personal anecdotes. Everyone has different experiences, no matter where they go. But um, for me, the culture and the language, and because I was working in Japan, the work culture. these were just major frustrations for me. And so I did get, yeah, a bit angry, a little bit, and sad, and just like, what am I doing here? Like, why have I done this to myself? Can I go home? Like, yeah, some days you want to give up. Um, but the good news is that this will pass. Like, you can get over this, because the third phase is recovery and humor phase. So by regaining some balance and humor, and your differences are legitimized and negotiated more successfully. So you start to, okay, understand that there are differences, but instead of getting frustrated, you start to understand how to overcome some of those challenges, or how to get through them, or start to appreciate the cultural differences. And individuals in this stage might now be discovering new favorite places, or setting up routines. Like, routines really important too, I think. um, but even if, okay, this is a new version of the shock cycle. It used to just be up, down, up, and everything, and then balance out. But it's good to know that there might be a second crash. You might crash down again with, you were feeling confident, and now you've lost it again. So you're again misreading cultural cues and norms, and that could be frustrating. But finally, you do start to get comfortable. So the comfort phase is where you start to feel comfortable and normal and socially and linguistically capable. Um, and you're confident that you've survived this, like that you've gotten through um, this, and you're starting to really love this environment. Like, this place feels like home. And honestly, that is what I say to a lot of people, is that Japan is my second home. Like that, so that's a nice place to get to. That, like, it'll balance out. And yeah, so but if you're only staying, for example, if some of you are only coming to NBCC for 1 year or 2 years, and you don't plan on staying, there will be a time when you're going home. And for that, there's the phase number 6 is that you might have excitement and anxiety, that you're building up to return home. You're writing exams, you're saying your goodbyes. There are a bunch of farewell parties. But then you do head home. And again, this is a long way from now, so we won't spend too much on this time, but there will be reentry shock. Just, I guess, maybe if some of you plan on going home during the winter break, that it might happen to you at that time. That returning back home can feel like entering a strange environment. Nobody understands how you feel. You've changed, but your home country hasn't changed. And, like, maybe you don't feel as accepted, or you have new expectations for your culture, and the culture hasn't changed, right? And so that's a different kind of shock that people are always surprised with. I know that I was really shocked when I came back to Canada. So, but then finally, that levels out too. You readjust, and you start to. This is the cool thing. This is what Hanny and I were having a discussion about. That you start to, you start to incorporate your own culture back in your home country, but also, you take with those parts from a new culture that you've gained,
Yep.
that you liked about that country, and you can take parts of those with you for the rest of your life, right? So yeah, this is culture shock. It is everyone experiences it differently, but it is, I can guarantee that you will go through some or all of these phases. So, Hanny, the questions I have, as
Yep.
everyone can see in my notes, um, what were some of our? I've discussed a little bit of mine. So, what were some of your adjustments or culture shock coming to Canada, and how did you deal with it?
To be honest, because I'm still in honeymoon phase, I did not have any because we from east of Europe. I didn't have like that big difference in adjustment, and ever since that I found in Canada, and I really like even like small differences. And I just understand that if it's Canada going to be my new home, I just try to learn and think the way people do things here, and that some of stuff that helps me. I also communicate with the newcomers from different countries, and let's say I went to play tennis, and we just discuss stuff. I saw different YouTube channels for people who move here, and they explain that if you want to resolve some stuff in your life in Canada, that's how you need to do, because that's how they think. And yeah, that's kind of stuff
Studied
that
us as a
helps me.
people.
Excuse
Sorry.
me.
Yeah, I know it's so cool that you were studying on how to interact with Canadians.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm good at this, to be
No, no,
honest
I'm
with
just
you.
this is so it's so
but
cool.
but
I'm
yeah, it
so
was kind of research, and it was like very like enlightening experience that you've been living in your environment and you do things in a certain way, but then you discover you can do things in different way. And sometimes the way your approach from your home country could be replaced with Canadian approach, and it's basically enrich my experience. And yeah, every time, for example, you might see me on a recruitment trip, if I go to different country, even if my own country, I use Canadian approach to some of the problems or questions that I need to resolve. So yep, I think it's just stay open-minded and understand that it's new culture. That is the way Canada is, and you can learn a lot for yourself. And I think like from cultural shock that I might face, it would be a little bit different. Like language barrier could be issue for many international students and newcomers, because the language people speak in Canada is a little bit different from we might study in books. And language is evaluating every day a new expression, new way of speaking. So yeah, but just give yourself a break. Don't just throw conclusion, or don't feel depressed because you don't understand something. Just ask the question. I personally ask questions all the time, and ask Claire about many things about Canadian lifestyle. And Claire been great on talking to me and explain like political system and gender equality and other stuff. So Claire is my source of knowledge in terms of Canadian lifestyle and culture.
uh,
Get yourself Canadian friend so you
yeah,
can
no,
ask
that's
questions.
actually there you go. That's a really good because I'm sorry, I can't help all, hundreds of international students coming in but you're right. Like yeah, Hanny and I have some really great discussions on culture, how things, how things are perceived maybe in Ukraine or differently here in Canada. We have some really great
Yep.
chats on this.
Yep.
But that's a really good point. Get a Canadian friend to yeah. I mean, first of all, having friends definitely helps with the whole process, but just getting you know, don't hesitate to ask questions about you know what's the norm, or how should I approach this situation, or what does my instructor mean by this, or what does you know yeah, I think that's a really good idea to ask questions like
And
um
even not only that, because we have employees at NBC from different countries, and
mm,
we have students from different countries. I talk sometimes to my colleague from India, Pakistan, and just ask you know questions that interested, like how would you approach with Indian students, when students from Brazil. And it's also very interesting, way of thinking. It's also something new. So yeah, even for this, I'll talk to my colleague from all around the world and learn from them,
mhm.
and learn from Claire. Hopefully Claire learns something from me too. So
Yes, yeah.
yes,
um
mutual way. Yep.
I have. I remember you gave me a great history lesson one day. That was
Okay.
I appreciated that. Um, but yeah, so okay, so you're dealing with whatever little confusions or culture, so making friends. You had also mentioned, oh, and you said tutorials, YouTube, like going to find resources online. That's helpful.
Yep.
You'd also mentioned in a discussion we had earlier going out and like just getting out in nature, right? You had said that
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah, sometimes you might feel overwhelmed, or you just like, we all human beings, we just get tired. And just the New Brunswick is an amazing place to be. There is a lot of nature. You just go for a walk or trail, and yeah, inhale,
And
exhale, and everything's
yeah,
gonna come to place.
yeah. And as the presentation says, routine is also something that can help. Just to get you, because sometimes if you are feeling really low or frustrated, focusing on, what your schedule is, can just to get through it, can keep you focused. During some of my low times, yeah, routine certainly helped for me. Cooking helped, like learning how, I mean, in Japan, I was quite young when I was there like 10 years ago, and it was kind of one of the first times I'd really lived. It was the first time I lived completely on my own. So learning how to cook and clean and organize myself in an entirely different country was quite a challenge, but it was also, it was a fun challenge to figure out what all the cleaning labels meant in a completely foreign language,
Yep.
and yeah, finding out what foods are there. But I learned how to make Japanese food, and like that's still something, that a skill that I'm so grateful to have. And but it's also, um yeah, something that was good for my mental health. I also got into running when I was there, and I joined taiko, a drumming club. I know, so, like exercise and clubs can certainly help. uh
Yep.
Hanny, you do jujitsu?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it's a very good point, because we have different, backgrounds, and like some of you play football, or they call it soccer here, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
So you can join different clubs of your interest.
Yep.
Like I did, because I did few sports, so I joined like sport clubs, like Claire mentioned, like
Mhm.
jiu-jitsu, boxing clubs, tennis. So, and it helps you, because when you in this community, like if you've been playing tennis all your life, and you join, tennis club in Fredericton, or jiu-jitsu club, you basically ended up in the same community with similar things from your home country, but you just do it with other people, and that's what united you. So,
Mhm.
yep,
Yeah,
I think
and
it's a great example. Just try to stick to something that you know from your country, so it would be familiar to you, and yeah, just great.
yeah,
Yep.
familiar to you, but in a different environment.
Yep.
The last thing I will say, and you had mentioned it earlier, is giving yourself a break. Because that's the other thing, is also know that, yeah, a bit of, yeah, alone time, a bit of, like calling home, or watching movies from your home country, like, that can certainly help too at the beginning. I wouldn't
Yes.
say, like only depend on that, because it's important to get integrated. But one my final example that I'll give is that for me the language was very overwhelming. I was the only Canadian, so like only, fully English person at my school where I was teaching, and in a very rural Japanese community, so there was not a lot of English at all. Like, so when I would get home, it was nice to, I was telling Hanny, I would go and rent DVDs from a local shop, and I would catch up on 1990s movies that that I'd never seen, and just to have a break from Japanese language. And I would listen to podcasts in English just to kind of take a break. But slowly but surely, I actually started replacing those with Japanese movies to start to, get. I was in Japan. Why not learn more about the Japanese culture, but
Yep.
have English subtitles, for example, and started watching more Japanese news, so that, again, in that stage three, you start to understand, like you start to feel more confident in learning the language and getting part of the culture. So yeah, so these are, yeah, a few lessons on both sides from Hanny and I. But
Yep.
finally, our last slide here are
Yes.
some formal resources. Before we jump
Yes.
into Q&A, if Henny, you want to handle those?
Yeah, and thank you, Claire. We have a few things that you know like services that can help you, such as international orientation session. So as soon as you come to NBCC, you're gonna have we're gonna do orientation session for international students. And I know some of campuses are full for this session, but don't worry, we're gonna provide you additional session during your study. And don't worry if you're not registered, because we have our staff at campus. They work full time there to help you with any questions you have, like Student Success Center. This center is available at all campuses, and if you have any questions in regard to anything, you can go and reach to our staff. There is a announcement about Keep Me Safe program and applications that is already available for international students. And what this application does, you can sign in with your student ID number, and if you feel overwhelming or you have some problems, so you need to talk to someone from your home country, that application would be a good source for you. Sometimes if you feel depressed, that would be very helpful. Just go on Apple Store or Google Market, Google Play Market, and download application and see how it works. And
Yeah, because it's important if you are feeling really depressed to talk to someone. Like
yes,
so I just wanted, sorry to jump in here, that's in some
yep,
countries mental health is still, you're not supposed to talk about feeling depressed. In Canada, there's still like, I'll be honest, like there's still a little bit of that, like it's not fully accepted to talk openly about mental health, but we're getting there. And one thing that we as a NBCC community, we want to make sure that you're getting the help that you need, because it is important to seek professional help if you're feeling really low and you can't get out of it from just going to exercise or just going to talk to friends. It's important that you seek professional help. And this Keep Me Safe app is professional help. They're trained counselors, and they have them in multiple languages. So as we said, if you're too exhausted to explain your situation in English, you can speak in hopefully your own language. So it's really important that you do seek out these supports. Sorry to jump in there.
yeah, no, I think it was great. And face Facebook groups, we have Facebook group for each campuses, so you can be part of this and have conversation with your future peers. And I think it's a good source. Additional to that, I know that some students create unofficial groups, which is fine, on WhatsApp or Facebook, and they just discuss different things. We have accessibility services. If you need any assistance, that service that you want to use. We have career counseling and well-being services at campuses. So if you thinking about doing something after the graduation, our staff would provide you recommendation or idea how to start prepare for your career. And well-being services, we have very dedicated member of our staff that will provide you advice and resources to make yourself so you can feel better. And health and dental insurance, it's already mandatory and in place for all the international students who come in to Canada, so you don't need to worry about if you need to go to dental or you need to see the doctor. We at NBCC, we do not provide the housing, and but we put our housing options, and we did webinar in regards to this too, so we can reach to our NBCC page and check housing options. It's kind of guides that helps you to find a place to stay. Library services, it gives you access to all the books that you need at campus, and tutoring services that helps you if you don't feel confident in different subjects. There is a tutoring services available for students if you have any issue like math or physics or something like specific. There is a tutoring services available for students. And student governance, which is the current students at NBCC will help you with your study, because they've been through, they've been at your place, and they're going to help you with questions or concerns that you may face. So there is much more available for you. So guys, if you need any services, we're working hard on services that going to be available for international students, because we understand that it's the transition period. For me, it's very exciting, but it could be challenging too, and that the services we provide, just all you need to remember, give yourself a break, and that's what our NBCC students said on previous webinar. Give yourself a break, and give yourself a little bit of time, and don't be silent. Like Claire mentioned, in some countries it might be not, in common practice to talk about issues and challenges. And that's what makes Canada a great country. You don't have to like suffer in silence. You can go and talk about the issues that you have, and we will recognize the problems, and we will assist you. And don't just stay in silence and ask questions, ask for help. And it's common in Canada that if you have some kind of issues, you can talk to someone, and they will provide you the help and assistance.
Yeah. So this list is just to show you that we don't want you to be stressed out in any additional way. So there are a lot of services for you to
Yep.
because you never know where you might be stressing out over. So so that's a great list. Thank you, Henny.
Yep.
So
Pleasure.
now we are going to have open Q&A. And so I think we'll go to the questions that are already there, and of course we love to talk, so we've gone a bit longer than we meant, but we hope to get to all these questions to finish up. So we've got a long one here.
Yep.
But I guess this is to me. Good morning, madam. Hi, I am Sai and admitted into the fall of 2019 network administration with regard to my orientation being held in Woodstock campus. I'd like to bring to your notice that my Canadian student visa hasn't yet arrived on hand. I'm anticipating a delay in this regard and request you to note the same. Could you kindly advise me on the steps in case of a delay? Thanks in advance. So this is a good question for anyone out there who's currently watching and does not have their visa or a study permit yet. So again, as I think I said last week, the number one thing is definitely to go and check the IRCC processing times and see if it's still in the normal processing time, like see which cases they're currently processing. If it's not, then definitely, contact the local embassy or consulate. But so important to note on the NBCC side is that you are able to arrive. The last day that you can arrive is Friday, September 13th.
Yep.
Henny, yeah. So, but the last day again to pay your tuition is September 6th. So, and that's the last day to register, correct, Henny? So
Yeah, the
essentially,
registration is already available we send the invitation
yeah.
to register on August 12th. So
But
yeah.
to register for classes, to essentially, we hope that you receive your visa or study permit by Friday, September 6th.
Yep.
And the last day to show up for classes is Friday, September 13th, right?
Yes.
So to Sai and to anyone else out there who is still waiting for their visa or study permit, you've still got a couple of weeks. So we hope we're sending good vibes your way. We hope that you get those study permits on time. Okay. So the next question. Hi, Claire. My work permit says employer New Brunswick Community College. Does this mean that I'm only allowed to work in the college only? So I would have to see the work permit, but but this is totally normal. Sorry, I'm correcting myself because it's a co-op work permit. Sorry, I'm thinking of postgrad work permits. A lot of work permits. So again, I just want to remind everyone that for as a full-time student, you're allowed to work 20 hours during while you're studying and full-time during breaks. But if your program, and most of our programs have a co-op or internship or on-the-job training, then you do require a separate work permit. And this is what you're mentioning there. You don't yet know your employer. You don't know who you're going to be matched up with until later in the program, so usually the spring. So it's totally normal that the employer is NBCC because it's on the job training as part of your program. So Dhruv, to your question, yes, that's totally normal. So you're good. Okay,
Yep.
next question. Do you want to read that?
Yep. Good morning, madam.
Answer. It says
Yeah.
answer.
Okay.
So do you too. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you read it? Or
Now, if you can go, yeah, just lost here a little bit.
so it says, hi ma'am and sir, thank you so much to all of you for giving us time and answering our inquiries. So that's to both of us. So and then it seems like she is coming to Moncton, so she'll see me soon at ITLC, I hope, or first week of classes. So thank you, Teresa. Thanks, Ma. Okay, the next one. Are you having an
Okay,
okay time
that's
reading?
correct now. So, good
What's that?
morning, madam.
Oh, this is the same question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's the same question that we answered first.
Yes.
Okay, next one. Can you
Thank you,
see that?
Claire and Haney, for organizing this series of webinars. I'll be boarding my flight in 8 hours.
Oh,
See
that's
you soon.
exciting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
exciting.
see you
And
soon, Alan.
and
And
thank
it's
you
been,
for watching our webinars. Yeah, we try to do our best.
yeah, it's been our pleasure. It's been really
Yeah.
fun, as you can tell. We enjoy doing them. So,
Um, I'm
okay.
refused for a study permit. How can I proceed for tuition refund? I already emailed and attached my refusal letter.
Oh, okay. Then that is what they have to do, right?
Yeah, so the best advice for you, I will send you the link. Usually, if you refused and you can ask the refund, and I will provide you the link, and maybe I will provide the link to everyone. So you
Yeah.
just need to contact our financial office or send email to the self-service support at nbc.ca. We can reach by phone, and I'll provide the link for this. So please
Nice.
contact our financial office and with a request of refund, and just please indicate that you have your student ID number ready, or that you attach. Yep.
So if you do get your study permit or visa refused, you have two options. One is to get your refund, which Chani has just mentioned, self-service support at NBCC. The other is to defer to next year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
In this specific question, students wants to get his
yeah,
refund, but if you'd like to defer,
yeah,
you would need to contact our admission team at International at NBCC and ask for a deferral for the next year.
yeah. So, Diana, you're able to get your refund if you go to self-service, but yes, if you want to defer international, yeah.
Yep.
So, okay, what percentage does the dental insurance cover, Hanny? Do you know
Good
that off the top
question.
of your head?
I don't usually. There is a few services that the dental insurance covers. For example, if you just need to see the doctor, it could cover like 80% or 90%. But if there is like some things to do, like I don't know, cleaning root canal, there is there is differences. When you arrive at campuses, please see our Student Success Center, and you get uh, get full description of on what your dental insurance gonna cover.
I'm just
And
going to, I
yeah,
was just going to
just
look it up,
one
but
more thing. There is a few clinics that work with direct pay. So when you attend the dentist, you don't need to pay. You just provide the insurance, and they will charge insurance company directly. So you don't need to pay your money and then ask insurance
I'm,
company to claim your money back.
I'm going to, I just got the link, so I'm just going to put it in there.
Okay, great.
So But one thing to note is that there will be a presentation on health insurance during
Yes.
ITLC and during the lunch and learns.
Yep.
So we don't. That's not necessarily our expertise. It should be on the website, and it will definitely be in the presentation. So,
Yes.
um, all right. So another health question: do
Yes.
we need to get a health card? So I'm wondering if, because there are two health cards if you think of it.
Yes.
So whether that's so health and dental, yes, that is mandatory for everyone.
Yes.
Guard Me, the extra insurance, or your basic Medicare insurance, is it's essential for the first semester. But if you are planning on being in New Brunswick, let's say your program is 2 years, you can apply for a New Brunswick health card,
Yes.
so Medicare. And but you can't get rid of Guard Me until you definitely are covered by Medicare. So definitely the first semester you'll have Guard Me, and then after you get your provincial Medicare, you can decide if you want to keep both, because Guard Me does have some advantages that New Brunswick Healthcare might not. One of them is that app, correct, Henny? Is
Yes.
that
There is a few things, and I believe Claire sent the presentation, and you can check what, for
oh yeah,
example, GuardMe covers. If you, for example, if GuardMe gonna cover you all around the world, whereas their New Brunswick Medicare just gonna cover you only in New Brunswick, or for
that's
example, if
true.
your parents need to come in case of emergency, GuardMe will cover expenses associated with your parents traveling to Canada. So
Yeah.
just compare what and yeah, what is applicable and suitable for you.
Hmm.
And for Medicare, yes, you need to apply for that. It's not
Happen
gonna happen
automatically.
automatically. There is a certain process and time to apply for Medicare. I
Yep.
hope this answered your question, Teresa.
Yeah. Awesome. So next question, you want to take that one?
Yep, I will allow you to bring our own lunchbox to eat in the cafeteria or other open areas outdoors where we can picnic with our own food. Yes, you are allowed to bring any food you'd like to, and there is outdoor
Mhm.
facilities where you can enjoy your lunch outside of campus.
Yep. Yeah. So both are options. Bring your own or sit outside. Yeah, it's great. And so next one,
Yep.
Henny, how can we find accommodation?
It's a great question and very common question. So first of all, I would encourage you to visit our NBC website to check housing, and there is a guide on how to find housing in each
Each
city.
city.
Additional
Yeah.
to that, we did the previous webinar on housing. The all webinars that we did, we're going to post on our on YouTube, and you will receive link later. We'll follow up with you so you can reach to our housing webinar. From my own experience, you can find something short term just to stay for like say few weeks, and then you can find something inside of Canada because it might be easier for you to find something that when you actually arrive opposite when you just try to find place outside of Canada, and that's what I face when I move here. I just get this Airbnb stay or hotel, wherever you prefer, and since I came here, I talked to different landlords. I got my place to stay, and when I tried to find it outside of Canada, it was a little bit challenging because landlords usually prefer to see person, talk to them, and there is a demand on housing right now. Yep, I hope this
Yeah.
helps you.
And one thing I would just add to that is I had a question last week about transferring money to a landlord before they even arrived. And again, we would discourage that until, like, unless you have someone who already lives, for example, if you already have a friend who's here in Moncton, that maybe they can go and check out the apartment for you and meet the landlord, that's great. Or but that's obviously a rare situation. So I would say, as Hanny has said, find a short-term accommodation, whether that's an Airbnb or a hotel for a couple of nights. Just but then find an apartment when you're actually here. Yeah.
Yes,
So
it's a
yeah,
little bit easier from what I learned from my experience and what I heard from the students.
yeah. So, Drew Meta, I'm in Moncton where I can meet you, Claire. So excited. Yeah, that's awesome. I have been meeting a lot of students on campus and it's very cool. I get excited. I take selfies every time. So if you
Yep,
see me, say hi. Let's take a selfie. Let's chat. It'll be great.
yep.
Okay. Next one.
If in case we receive the visa this last month of August, is it still possible to attend classes on the second week of September? I mean, before September 13th, or is the immigration will question us?
Okay, so if you receive it the last week of August, I mean, okay, yes, I understand the situation. So let's say you get your visa August 29th, but for some reason you don't want to come until September 6th or 7th. Yes, of course, that is technically possible. You have to pay and register by September 6th, and the last day to show up is September 13th.
Yep,
But for everyone out there who's listening, I would not, if you have your visa on the 29th, I would say, try to come the 30th or 31st. Like I think it's really important that you do come to Canada as soon as possible. As we were just talking about, to find accommodation takes time, but also everything that we just talked about, the cultural integration, like it takes a lot of time. And so we don't want you to add any stress to your life if you arrive late, because if you arrive late, it means you'll have to catch up on the first few days of class, and that might add a bit extra stress. And so if you don't need to add that stress, please don't. That's my recommendation. If you arrive your if you get your visa at the end of the month of August, come as soon as you're able to.
yep.
That's Yeah, but
Sounds good.
technically yes, you're allowed to come be after that, but come as soon as possible. Yeah, to get
Great.
settled. Yeah. Okay, see, we're at 11 o'clock, but we're gonna keep getting these last questions. So
Yeah,
hang on. Yeah.
if I was late to the orientation program because visa has not arrived yet, will I be able to attend it once again at NBC? Yes, we will provide different information session because we do understand that not everyone arrives on time or we don't have a space for orientation. Yes, we will provide additional information session on campus during time of your study. Do we have to get travel insurance once we get plane ticket? Is it mandatory? The travel insurance is not mandatory, and I believe in many countries it's mandatory to have travel insurance for anyone who's travel, but it could be different. We do not have. It's not mandatory from NBC to have your travel insurance. It's up to
No,
you.
but definitely recommend it. I've traveled a lot in my life, and the one time I didn't have travel insurance, I regretted it. So it's always the way. So definitely, it's better to be covered just in case. So we would recommend it, but it's not mandatory.
Yep.
Yeah. So what can Service Canada do for international students? So the one thing is that Service Canada is where you get your social insurance number. So that's the number one thing
Yep. And
to
you need social
yeah.
insurance number in order to work in Canada. So.
Yes, sorry. Thanks for that connection, connecting the dots. Sorry, the social insurance number is required for working. Thanks, Sandy. Okay, so what airport is the one we should land in to reach NBCC St. Andrews?
So we
Right.
do recommend to use Saint John Airport if
Yep.
you are going to St. Andrews. In addition to that, I will provide you a link because there is
The
pickup
shuttle.
services
Yeah, there you
available
go.
for students coming and study and to NBCC.
Hmm.
I will attach the link to that so uh, you can register if you come within the dates.
Yeah.
Uh,
So that is
Send to all.
yeah, so St. Andrews, Woodstock, and Miramichi. Those are the three campuses that
Yep.
don't have I mean, Miramichi does have an airport, but it's very small. So those are the three. So Miramichi, St. Andrews, and
Yep.
Woodstock are the three places that don't
Yep.
have their own airports. So St. Andrews, fly into St. John. Woodstock, Fredericton, and Miramichi,
We usually recommend to fly to Moncton, or
Moncton. Okay,
there's
Moncton's more direct. Yeah, yeah, okay.
yeah, or there is a Bathurst airport available, but for
Oh, okay.
Moncton there is more flights, so
Yeah.
one of them would be your choice.
And then Moncton has its own airport, St. John has its own airport, and Fredericton has its own airport. So you can fly directly into those places.
So what
Um,
airport to land in Moncton?
yeah, Moncton.
Yeah, Moncton.
Moncton
Because
Airport.
sometimes we have students who, last year we faced some of the students who land in Fredericton, go and study in Moncton, but what
Yeah, so
students don't realize, New Brunswick is relatively small, but it's still like 2 hours of driving. So
yeah,
the flight, like tickets could be a little bit cheaper, but at the end of the day, you would need to find the transportation to get from Fredericton to Moncton.
yeah. So, and yeah, there's a bus that goes between the two, but only twice a day. So you might have to stay the night, and that would cost you a hotel, like so yeah, you're definitely right. Even if it's slightly cheaper, it's better if you live in one of the three cities to fly into one of the three cities.
Yep.
And the last thing is, thank you so very much for the immense response. This information helped me so very much. Awesome.
Thank you for
What a
watching,
great,
guys, and
yeah,
see
what
you
a,
in Canada. Maybe you're already here. And
yeah. Yeah, so if you're already
thanks.
here, please say hi to us in Fredericton or Moncton, and we'll see you at ITLC, and we'll see you on campus.
Yep. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.